guilt and shame about it. And today people use like OCD or you're a bit OCD in like a favourable way, but back then OCD, I remember thinking if you've got OCD there's something wrong with you, so I'm not going to admit to anything like that, and it was better not to talk about these things, which is what we said before about the 80s and the 90s. Things were far less out in the open when it comes to mental health, and even going well into this century, and you know, even today in some ways that's continuing, as we all know. Does anyone know any of the different types of anxiety that exist, or anxiety conditions? Anyone want to throw a few at me? I've mentioned OCD.
Social.
Yeah. Social anxiety, which is when you feel like with other people, where you can't control the situation, you'd rather not be there. Does anyone know what that is called when you don't want to go outside because of that?
Agoraphobia.
Yeah, or agoraphobia. Does anyone know about what Sheila said before, this feeling of, there's a name for this condition where you just feel anxious and there's just no reason for it? It's a 3-letter one. It's called generalised anxiety disorder, GAD. And technically you could have that if you've experienced anxiety for 6 months or more. And by that we're talking about like prolonged anxiety, where you just don't feel good about things. Phobias are a form of anxiety too. So if you feel a bit lightheaded in a lift, you might have been in a lift 50 times, and then you say, as it was mentioned earlier, I'm not getting in a lift again, that gives me panic attacks and gives me anxiety, when in fact it doesn't. It's just the last one did, and your body is trying to protect you from that unpleasant feeling. So phobias are a big part of anxiety conditions.
Health.
Sorry?
Health.
Health, yeah. You mean people who are worried about the health all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people who, as you say, interpret any little thing, oh, I've got this, I've got that, and interpret the world, you know, there's lots of danger around and you need to be careful. And people are very conscious that like a mild headache, oh, that must be a, you know, an aneurysm or whatever. Panic disorder, which is to do with panic attacks, but it's when you just get panic attacks for no reason. So it might be in a very calm situation, you just get a panic attack, that's called panic disorder. And also post-traumatic stress disorder, which is where one or a series of events still impact on you and cause a stress response in the future. Obviously there's lots of others to do with, what are people called, do you think they're sick all the time?
Hypochondriac.
Hypochondriacs. So there's lots of other terms as well which can be loosely associated with some of these things and beyond them as well. But doctors are better at diagnosing it now, I think, than they did, say, 20 or 30 years ago, because there's more info out there.